October 19th, 1812. Napoleon retreats from Moscow like a little punk. Welcome to The Revisionists. I'm Brian Flynn.
I'm Zach Powers.
And hey, we got a spicy meatball for you tonight.
Relating to the joke we made before the recording started.
No, it's something I say literally all the time.
Oh, yeah. I forgot that you decided that you're going to, pirate start a sitcom by adopting a catchphrase and just trying to get a Hollywood talent agent to notice you in Denver.
Mm-hmm. Well, Got Any Cheese was taken, so that was out.
Yeah. And obviously catchphrase is very popular in, let's just check, 2019.
Yeah.
The year where TV sitcom catchphrases are the thing.
I feel like I have a very gifable face. Anyway, our guest, what makes this night different from all other nights, listeners, is Jen Colick is here.
Hi.
Hey, thank you for being here.
Of course. I'm here.
Yes. Jen Colick, of course, friend of the show, friend of my life.
Yeah, you say different from all other nights, but generally speaking, oftentimes when we record this show, she is somewhere in the apartment where we are one of the two apartments.
It's true. It's true. Usually in the air ducts.
Yes. Much like the guest last time, Shannon Camp. Frequently, if we need them on mic, it is not a problem to get them on mic at a given time.
I will say, Jen, you are filling in very last minute, and thank you for doing that.
Of course.
We all know it's October, and there's nothing scarier than relationships.
Am I right? 1992 stand-up comedy. Mm-hmm. It is the spooktacular time of year, our favorite time of year around these parts, which normally on this show we don't necessarily focus on scary history. Although most of history is actually kind of scary.
But it's not scary in, a fun way. It's not scary like Halloween, the movie. It's scary like Schindler's List, the movie.
It would have been so much worse if they had titled it Schindler's List, the movie.
Yeah. You've read the list. Now see the movie.
Zach, what do we normally do on this show?
Well, we normally read lists. It's a very dry read. I like the idea of someone reading Schindler's List because, while it's emotionally packed, it's
very dry.
It's very dry. It's like reading a phone book of people who got saved from a horrible thing. But at the same time, it's just some names.
Yeah, at a certain point, it's okay, yeah, I get it. Let's get moving here, Schindler.
Yeah. They got Morgan Freeman to do the audiobook, and it was it still didn't sell. This is a comedy history podcast where we usually avoid talking about the Holocaust.
We've done a pretty good job up until recently, I feel like.
I feel like we're 1 degree of separation by talking about a movie about the Holocaust.
Yeah,
that's the degree of separation we needed. But it's a comedy history podcast where we talk about a person or event from history. We will never do the Holocaust.
That's our motto.
Yeah.
Get a new revisionist bumper sticker that just says "We will never do the Holocaust."
Yeah, write it on our the logo page we have for our podcast. The revisionist promise: we will never do the Holocaust.
Yep, that's honestly going on all of our social media tonight.
Yeah. But we talk about a person or event from history, and one person gives a true, accurate account of that person or event, and then another person gives a crazy bullshit bananas alternate version that can be whatever they want it to be. It could be the fucking Kingdom Hearts version of Alexander Hamilton, and that's fine. And at the end of the episode, we vote on what is the true history of this brilliant, blue, luscious, resilient, dying marble.
You put those
resilient and dying.
I mean, it's made it a pretty long time. The marble will survive, but the things on it will die.
That's true.
Going forward. And last time we covered the very tragic story of Evelyn Nesbit, Eve Nesbit, and ultimately concluded the alternate history, which was like a combination of a Kafka book report, and then also it just turned into hitting people in the nuts.
Yeah, it did.
Is the real history going forward. So Evelyn Nesbit's tragic life happened, and then later she kicked a bunch of people in the nuts, and there was a cockroach thing. So there you go.
Yep. It was also like a little stranger than fiction. It's coming back to me now.
Yeah. Surprisingly, not one of the episodes where Brian was on a lot of NyQuil.
I'm very shocked by that.
Yeah.
I am on a lot of paint fumes this episode. So, we'll see what that has in store, listeners.
Oh my goodness.
I am
also on paint fumes, and I did not actually write an ending to my alternate history, so we'll see how it turns out.
And thank you for saying that, because I wasn't sure who was doing the real and who was doing the alternate. But by the process of elimination, I have determined that Brian is doing the real history this week for the Smalls Lighthouse incident.
Yes. Hey there, this is Brian, reminding you that The Revisionist is supported by listeners just like you. You can make a pledge and get rewards like shirts and even the right to vote over at patreon.com/therevisionists. The Smalls Lighthouse incident / tragedy. By the way, before I forget, I got a lot of the material from this from the website for Trinity House History. Trinity House is the administrator of like all the lighthouses in the UK, or at least in Great Britain.
I do have to question, before you go on, you said the Smalls Lighthouse incident / tragedy. I really wonder what the Venn diagram of things that can be described as incidents and tragedies is, because I'll bet it's a pretty big overlap.
Well, there's the string cheese incident, which I don't know can be described as a tragedy.
No, I think I think incident is the proper word. I have no emotional response one way or the other. It happened. It certainly happened.
And then there's like the Haymarket tragedy incident, which I think I think it's like a 90% overlap.
Yeah.
So, and also, I got some of this from the blog of Stephen Liddell. 2 Ds, 3 Ls. Stephen Liddell. So this is a story all about how
well, are you really just gonna go?
I started writing that down. I'm like, well, fuck it. We're here. We're on paint fumes. Let's do this. This is the last episode we're recording in the former Denver studio. Before we moved to our...
At the time of recording, the current Denver studio.
Before we moved to our temporary location. Anyway.
In Brigadoon, I believe. Yeah.
In Brigadoon.
So expect the next episode in 50 years when Brigadoon next appears.
So this is a story all about how there are 3 lighthouse keepers instead of 2 by law.
So this movie, The Lighthouse, starring Willem Dafoe and Patrick
Robinson.
Robinson.
Introduction to this story you possibly could. There's so much insane shit in this story, and that's how you chose to...
Well, I feel like it adds tension to be like, oh, why are there 3 now?
Okay.
What happened with 2?
So there's a reason. I was going to say, so this Willem Dafoe, Robert Pattinson movie is bullshit, but maybe it's about this incident.
It's not. I mainly say that because I don't want to spoil the movie for listeners.
Have you seen it?
No. but every description I've read of it doesn't really bear much similarity to this.
Okay.
Although maybe it is. I don't know. Who gives
So
a
you're
fuck? There's
big-
another movie called The Lighthouse that came out in 2016. That was like a small indie movie that is about this, though.
I see.
I mean, the new one, actually, from what I've read, seems like it's similar. I
Well,
mean,
we'll
it's
see.
two guys in a lighthouse who hate each other.
It
Yeah.
is about two guys at a lighthouse who... I don't know their relationship, but yes.
So Smalls sits on
One moment. As he's explained in a few interviews, director Robert Eggers was inspired by a real incident that took place at the Smalls Lighthouse in
Fuck yeah.
Pembrokeshire.
Oh, shit. All right. Well, spoiler alert for possibly the movie The Lighthouse, then.
Please give us money, the movie The Lighthouse.
Come on, Eggman. Send us some bucks. So Smalls sits on a tiny bunch of rocks in the Irish Sea, 21 miles off St. David's Head, Wales. Lighthouse keepers at the time, they had on the job a high rate of going mad. And also dying for multiple reasons.
Dying or killing themselves?
I think a little bit of both. Some of it was...
We were talking about Venn diagrams earlier, and the Venn diagram of people who died and killed themselves, pretty high overlap on that one.
Well, it's like, do you die of like seagull poisoning, or do you like fling yourself
Seagull.
onto the rocks because you can't take the isolation anymore?
Or just like drinking, I guess, also.
Yeah.
So, Smalls Lighthouse was built in 1776. Lin-Manuel. It was built in response to heavy shipping losses in the area because they got rocks and shit. It was built as a privately owned lighthouse, which there were a lot of them at the time. And a lot of lighthouse keepers and privately owned lighthouses, they had in particular, a higher rate of insanity, I guess.
It's interesting that of all the privately owned industries that seemingly went out of business, privately owned lighthouses is not high. Like, I'd start with prisons, maybe. But no.
Yeah, you'd think, but I don't know that there's much profit in the lighthouse game.
Insurance companies? Medical care?
Yeah, that's true.
No, lighthouses were the problem.
Well, the problem with privately owned lighthouses, as I understand it, is that if the company went out of business, there was no one left to go and tell the lighthouse keeper, hey, you don't have to be out here drinking yourself to death anymore. So
Yeah.
they were
So they
basically
just left
abandoned.
them? Oh,
I guess. Or they like send a temp? I don't know.
That is maybe the best argument for corporations don't care about you that I've ever heard.
Yeah, no, fucking exactly. Yeah, break up big lighthouse. So the lighthouse was owned by a Liverpool merchant dude named John Phillips. And he bought the land, and then a 26-year-old designer of musical instruments named Henry Whiteside sent him a design for a lighthouse, and he was like, cool, let's build it. So they first built it with iron legs, but they proved faulty. Like, I guess they didn't have good materials, so they switched to wood.
As the famous Three Little Pigs story goes.
Yup.
Well, if the Titanic was made of wood instead of steel, she would not have sank.
Instead of seals.
Yeah.
Instead of seals, yeah.
It was a bunch of seals tied together.
Yeah.
So,
I wish
it's
I
like-
remembered the name of that Pokemon that was a seal, because I feel like it's weak to ice.
it's literally seal.
The musician?
No, a seal with 2 E's. That's how they avoid the trademark infringement.
Okay. I was hoping
I
seal the
love that
I haven't.
A, you know that, and B, that it's seal.
I was just hoping that now that they have like 4,000 Pokemon, I was hoping one of them was Seal the musician.
He's weak to Heidi Klum. Like the just to show how treacherous the land is, the workers building the lighthouse had to drill iron rings into the rock just to like secure themselves by like tying them to these rings. So the lighthouse was octagonal in design, but the only way to get in or out was a rope ladder that led to a trap door in the bottom of the lighthouse, which led into like the apartment area.
It looked like a yurt on stilts. Like
Yeah.
it does not, the drawings of it that you can find online, it doesn't look like a real lighthouse that we
No.
think of today. It looks like a yurt on stilts.
Yeah, it looks like a kid's treehouse that their like absentee father built.
Yeah.
So they had like strict rules about not leaving the trap door open, and they had a large problem with bird corpses coming into the apartment because they would just fly into the lantern and die.
So the apartment was connected to the constantly revolving, extremely bright lantern?
It was underneath it. So like the lantern room was upstairs,
Okay.
and it was powered with like I think it was a coal fire. So
To be
yeah,
fair,
it
this
was-
does seem like it was designed to make someone go mad.
Yeah, no, I'm surprised it didn't kill anyone.
Oh,
So-
spoiler alert, this is one of the rare death-free episodes of the
No,
revision.
not cool.
No, it's not.
Spoiler.
Oh, okay, never mind. Scratch
realized-
it. I guess he did say tragedy earlier, and usually that implies...
No, someone lost their shoe in the trapdoor. That was a tragedy. So in December of 1776, it became obvious that the lighthouse, as it was built, wouldn't withstand the weather. There's a bunch of ocean stuff going on, storms and shit. So in January of 1777, Henry Whiteside, the designer, and his blacksmith went to the lighthouse to repair it. But then a bunch of storms kicked up, and they found themselves trapped. So Whiteside, after weeks, sent 3 letters out into the ocean in barrels. And one of them eventually turned up in Wales, and it reads, "Sir, being now in a most dangerous and distressed condition upon the Smalls, do hereby trust Providence will bring to your hand this, which prayeth for your immediate assistance to fetch us off the Smalls, or we fear we shall all perish. Our water near all gone, our fire quite gone, and our house in a most melancholy manner." He signs off, "I need say no more, but remain your distressed, honorable servant, Henry Whiteside."
You gotta
I love how
respect.
he's like,
Fucking British people, man.
yeah.
Just
we're
like-
out of food, we're out of fuel, and the state of the house is melancholy.
It's like the kind of everything that a British person or a person in like the 19th century ever wrote to anybody else is like a TLDR text nowadays, where it's like, what the fuck? If this was important, you'd be like, can you please do this for me? Explain later.
So that one barrel
Hey,
turned up
you
in
up?
Wales.
Lighthouse falling.
Drawing of an eggplant. So that one barrel turned up in Wales. They found another one a few days later. One of them made its way all the way around the coast of Ireland to Galway Bay, like on the complete other side of the island. But they make the repairs. They're saved from the lighthouse.
Like it's a monster.
I mean, maybe. And then 25 years later, in 1802, 2 new lighthouse keepers arrive. Thomas Howell, a former cooper, of King Herod,
What is a Cooper a name or a thing?
It's a person who makes barrels.
Great.
And it is now a name, I guess.
Well, I guess the barrels helped the previous guy, so it makes sense that he got this job.
Of King Herod, Pembrokeshire. It's Pembrokeshire. I wrote down PB Shire, so it just looks like peanut butter shire. And so Thomas Howell, and then Thomas Griffith, a laborer from Solvern. Both men married with families. And Howell, what?
Both of these lighthouse people had families?
Yes.
No, I mean, some people hate their families. Okay, I get it. Never mind.
Yeah, this was like the 19th century equivalent of going out for a pack of smokes.
And not coming back.
Yeah.
Howell... It might be the 19th century equivalent of being like, I gotta join the military so we don't die in a poorhouse.
That's far more accurate, probably. So Howell and Griffith did not get along. They were known to have argued quite a lot. Don't know about what. I just wrote down lighthouse shit, ?
Actually, and this is weird, it was about Trump. 100%. Yeah.
Oh God, he infects everything.
Yeah, guess who was on which side?
It's weird. One was a Bernie fan, and the other was a Kamala Harris supporter.
Yeah. They both liked him, and one just believed Q was a thing.
So not long after Howell and Griffith start, passing ships see a distress signal flag raised above the lighthouse. This was in the days, obviously, before Morse code, but also well before, like, they had better flags to, like, communicate. Like, no one knew what specific distress they were in.
I see.
They were, like, shitty flags, too.
In 1890, we released Flags 2.0. It's Flags OS 10.
It's Flag Sierra.
Now
whatever.
with 3 flags.
So they there were around the same time that the ships noticed the distress signal, massive storms kicked up again. It basically made it impossible to land on the very rocky coast of the island. But ships were sent from all over the area to try. Both sources I read made a point to say they sent the stoutest, bravest crews they could find. Which I don't know if I could make that sound like me. So the ships were sent all over from try. None of them could even like get close enough to shout at the lighthouse. Some did report seeing...
You're always close enough to shout at something.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of if they can hear you.
Right. Fair enough.
I could shout at you guys right now.
Please don't. We can shout at the lighthouse later. So some of the crews did report seeing the silhouette of one of the men standing on the lighthouse gallery. And this whole time, the lamp stayed lit in the lighthouse, which was a good sign, which meant they weren't, like, both dead. But the families eventually started coming to the cliffs of Pembrokeshire to wait for news, because this went on for 4 months that they were trapped. 4 months of storms and rough seas. So 4 months later, a crew finally lands, and they recover the body of Thomas Griffith and find Thomas Howell changed beyond recognition. Then I wrote, so what? So 1 to 2 days before the distress signal was raised, Griffith fell ill, and Howell couldn't help him. And he tried to hail passing ships, but none of them came. And then 2 days later, the storms come, and they're trapped. A few weeks pass, and Griffith dies. And then a few days later, his body begins to decompose, because Howell was just like, Howell did not want to throw the body out the trap door because he thought it would look suspicious, because he had been writing letters about how they do not get along, and how much they hated each other. But the body started to decompose, which is like, oh, this smells. Howell used he had like a 96 in Cooper, 96 skill in coopering. So he used that to build a coffin out of like a spare bulkhead that they had in the apartment.
Your spare bulkhead you have in your apartment.
Yeah, lighthouse shit. In
case you need to build an improvised coffin for your roommate that you murdered.
You are looking me right in the eye as you say that.
We are sharing a mic.
Yes, that's true. So he puts Howell in the coffin, and then because he does not want to be in the same room as it anymore, To
be fair, one of the foundations of any good relationship is, if you die and we're stranded in the apartment, I'm gonna put you in an improvised coffin so I don't have to smell your corpse.
Yeah, that's true.
It's in the wedding vows. Last time I read the wedding vows, that's one of, for sicker or poor, for better or worse, if you die, I will create an improvised coffin and put you in it so I don't have to see and smell your rotting corpse. It's standard patter,
Especially since our wood chipper broke down a few months ago.
Sure, it's the 21st century. We have the Fargo method now, but...
He tied, because he didn't want to be in the same room with the coffin, he ties it to the railings outside the lighthouse. But then the storms kick up again and break the coffin apart, leaving Griffith's corpse tied to the railing of the lighthouse, looking in to where Howell was stationed. That was the silhouetted figure that the ship crews reported back to as seeing it in the lighthouse.
What?
Yeah. Some accounts say that in the wind, Griffith's body would blow in such a way that it looked to Howell like Griffith's corpse was beckoning to him.
So this is like the mother from Psycho, but tied to the outside of the window?
Yep. That's exactly right. This, of course, took a great mental and emotional toll on Howell. He looked, when they recovered him 4 months later, he looked like he had aged years, and his family reports he was never the same. Understandably, perhaps. And the Smalls Lighthouse stood like that for another 60-some years, and then was
when you
torn
say
down.
Stood like that, you don't mean the corpse was hung on the window.
No, they got him.
Yeah, it was.
No, it was like they put a Memorial Garfield suction cup thing.
Oh, okay. That's respectful.
But it was like
respectful.
It was like a somber Garfield, not like a sassy one.
Yeah, I hate Mondays. Yeah, I hate Mondays, and also all days that I'm tied to a window dead. So they built a new lighthouse on the site, and it still stands today as the tallest lighthouse in Wales, which was probably not the note to end on for this story, but that's what I did. Yeah. Well, they accomplished something.
And I will just want it noted, I did not do a British accent at any point in this story.
Well, no, it takes place in Wales.
Can I do a Welsh accent then?
I'm sure you can't.
I'll work on one.
Hello, everybody. I'm JD Lopez, the host of Left Hand Right Brain. It's a free-flowing, wide-ranging conversation that I have with artists doing interesting and creative things here in Denver and beyond. We talk about their personal stories, break down their creative process, and what motivates them. Spoiler alert, it's mostly spite. We talk about all these things and more while kicking back, cracking wise, and always having a good time. You can find old episodes and everything you need to know at lefthandrightbrainpod.com.
Okay.
Have you found a Welsh accent?
Yeah, I have found a Welsh accent.
That is, I don't really know. Welsh is not an accent I know well, and I know that's wrong.
Okay, let me,
It just sounds like you have something in your mouth that you're trying not to drop while you talk.
Yeah.
It's a Wales.
That's not, nope.
Scottish is
Anyway.
kind of my thing. Scottish is an accent I feel like I can do because I watched enough The Thick of It to see imitate Peter Capaldi, but I know that's not what Welsh sounds like.
Well, so is that Scottish or is that just Peter Capaldi then?
I also went to Scotland when I was a senior, so it's like an amalgamation of the Scottish understanding that I have.
All right.
Scottish listeners, please write in with your opinions.
Okay.
I did it. There was an episode not long ago where at the end we had a clip of me doing a Scottish accent.
Because it was one of the This Day in History. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It was a good one. It was a good one. It was as impenetrable as I find a regular Scottish accent.
The key word for me to get into a Scottish accent is roundabout. Roundabout. You got a roundabout. You got a roundabout up in the north, and then it's just got to find your way there. That last there was off, but
That was pretty good, actually.
The there was bad, but roundabout's the word. Tips for listeners, if this part somehow makes it in. Try and make the word roundabout sound right. And that's the key to a Scottish accent. Also, the movie Brave. What if you could change your fate?
That is delightful. Okay, so thank you very much for that basic retelling of the Smalls Lighthouse tragedy. Also, I just realized today, going over this story, one of my friends who I worked with at the Tattered Cover a number of years ago had a cat named the Smalls.
Oh.
And now I wonder if she was named after the lighthouse. It's definitely the kind of thing Becky would do.
Becky, right in. Do you have one cat and another cat tied to your window?
Oh, no.
To be
I love
fair,
cats.
based on my experience with cats, they'd be into that. They'd be like, I won.
Out the window is where the burbs live. They would
Yeah,
love it.
no. Fucking Luna would be like, yes.
So I have some. I consulted some additional resources, Brian, than just the two that you looked at, and I actually uncovered the real story.
I do want to say before we begin this story, filmmaker Dave Eggers is making a movie about this incident, and I'm sure he consulted a lot of sources, so Jen's story might spoil what actually happens in the film The Lighthouse. I'm sure this is a one-to-one description of the plot of the upcoming film The Lighthouse, so...
It definitely is.
Yeah.
So you're right about all of the kind of shenanigans that happened in the first quarter century or so of the Lighthouse. Where your story kind of departs from some of the facts is when Howell and Griffith begin cohabitating in the Lighthouse. Howell was sent to be the second shift at the Lighthouse after Griffith's other companion went mad and actually flung himself out the trapdoor and onto the rocks below.
Natch.
Yeah. So, I mean, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So Howell and Griffith took an immediate dislike to one another.
No, I would thrive in a lighthouse environment. I just went along, but then I'm like, no, I've got to stand up for myself.
What would it be? The seagulls, the
Special
salty
cameo,
sea air, the
Special cameo by Shannon.
And my pizza.
Yay!
Oh, hey.
Wait,
Hey.
hi and goodbye.
She got home from work late, and that's what happens.
That's just a little local flavor.
was that a deep dish pizza?
It was a regular dish pizza.
You can get regular pizza in Chicago?
It's not banned yet.
So they took an immediate dislike to one another. That is absolutely true. But most historical records, as Brian said, they don't really specify why. I'll tell you why. Griffith was a fucking vampire. That's why.
Oh.
At first,
I can see how that might be like an odd couple situation. One of them's very neat, the other feeds off the living.
Sure.
One of them turns into a bat, the other's like a pretty good cook.
it was very awkward from the start. At first, Howell thought he was just like a weird goth dude, but Howell wore all black, and he gave off a distinctly creepy vibe, almost as if he was like trying too hard to act like a regular person.
Okay. So sort of like an Elon Musk thing.
So
Yes,
he wasn't
exactly.
just a normal vampire, he was a try-hard vampire. He was like an Anne Rice, Lestat kind of.
Exactly.
Or Edward Cullen, to be honest, tries a little too. Actually, he both tries too hard and doesn't try enough at the same time. He's Schrodinger's vampire.
Edward Cullen, coincidentally, played by Robert Pattinson, star of The Lighthouse, directed by Robert Eggers.
David.
Brought to you by
I believe- Is it David?
No,
David's
Robert.
David's
is
the
author.
writer. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Brought to you by A24 in theaters now.
Or soon.
Yeah, that's true. Go to a theater. Maybe it's playing.
So Howell didn't figure this out right away, right? But after a few months, he realized he never saw Griffith eat more than a few bites at meal times. And eventually he discovered little bits of Griffith's chewed up food hidden in the potted plants.
And did Griffith say things like, "The children of the night, what music they make"? Did he say things like, "I never drink ... wine"?
It's,
Only in his sleep.
why did you say the ... No reason. Blah. Exclamation point.
I was trying to class it up because, like, this is a Welsh vampire. He probably dropped his Transylvanian accent. Spent a lot of time trying to ingratiate himself into society.
I'm going to get this fucking accent.
This fucking accent keeps eluding me. It's been 500 years. The fucking Welsh. If only this for Scotland. I love the idea of a vampire trying to get, like, a new accent and struggling with it. He's got... Maybe he, like, does Duolingo sometimes. I've got to adapt to the new society.
But then even when he's trying, he just drops a blah in there every now and then.
And that's the real tip-off.
Yeah, that's...
You can't hide that. So Howell wakes up one day with a puncture wound on his wrist, and Griffith waves it off like, "No, that's just a spider bite. You know, this soaking wet rock in the middle of the ocean is just full of spiders." But over the next few nights, the wound becomes worse. It becomes larger and redder and more gross. And then one morning, Howell wakes up with a puncture mark on his neck. Meanwhile,
It finally found the neck.
It was a little digging. He had a Grey's Anatomy out every night.
Where is the neck? It's my first day.
So meanwhile, Howell was feeling sicker and sicker. But the less energy he had, the better Griffith seemed to feel. He was starting, if it was possible, to look even more youthful and sprightly. He was just full of energy. Running around, running laps around the veranda of their shack, pounding Gatorade.
The veranda.
He was looking like a Robert Pattinson to his Willem Dafoe.
Exactly. Also, there were like these dark shapes flitting around the windows and the trapdoor every night. And Howell could swear they were bats, but Griffith insisted they were just night gulls.
Yeah. The classic.
That's almost worse.
The classic Stephen King short story, The Night Gulls.
So,
It's my favorite Bob Seger song.
so finally, Howell starts, catching on to what's been going on, and he hatches a plan to kind of catch Griffith off guard.
Sure.
Right. So he pretends to go to sleep one night and waits for Griffith to approach him. And when he opens his eyes, Griffith is leaning over him with his mouth open and two shiny little fangs glinting in the moonlight.
And a bib with a picture of Howell on it.
Yes. He's just kind of rubbing his hands together. He's got like a carafe of melted butter in one hand. So Howell leaps out of bed, brandishing a stake he improvised from a spare bulkhead.
Right.
And
This is why you have apartment bulkheads, people.
exactly.
Coffins and stakes. And you know what? It's easier if you do both at once, just in case.
Mm-hmm. So they struggle. Howell stabs Griffith multiple times before he finally dies. But and of course the apartment is like destroyed, covered in blood, etc. Unable to bear the sight of his vampiric nemesis, Howell ties Griffith's corpse to the outer railing, both to escape the sight and smell of him. Because, he's been eating other people's blood for hundreds of years. The smell is disgusting. And he also puts him out as a warning to all other creatures of the night.
I also, anytime I hear about like a vampire getting staked or hear about, it's not like in the news, but every time I read about a vampire getting staked, I picture the staking scene from Dracula Dead and Loving It, which is, I'm not going to describe it. YouTube it, y'all. It's a gem.
I always
Sorry
think
to
of the
interrupt.
one from the 92 Buffy movie where Pee Wee Herman, aka Paul Rubens, gets staked and it takes 40 minutes for him to die. Not a good movie, much better series, but I always remember that scene.
I forgot that was Paul Rubens. We watched that a couple years ago, so not super distant past.
It's one of the best parts of that movie, which is at best, mediocre film.
Yeah. Sorry.
So, I feel like there was one more last part to that. Oh yeah. So when people finally pick up on his distress signal and are able to, he's able to escape from the lighthouse. His hair has turned all white from the shock of the vampire. So the last part of the story, when Howell is finally rescued from the lighthouse, his hair has all turned white from the shock of having to struggle with this vampire. And of course he's raving like a lunatic because he's been alone with the corpse of an vampire for months, and no one really believes him. And he has like PTSD like a motherfucker. So yeah, people are like, man, he's not the same.
Yeah.
And then they gave him some laudanum, and that was it.
Yeah. Laudanum solves all problems.
Yeah,
Jen, thank you.
of course.
Before we move on to the judgy part of the show, paint fumes, y'all. Paint fumes. It's a cheap high. You can't get arrested for it. Paint fumes. Try it today. I just want to remind you, you can always reach out to us via revisionistpodcast.com. We want your letters, your comments, your questions. Give them to us. Yum, yum.
Give us some feedback about the various accents that you've heard on the podcast this evening.
And my obvious overconfidence in them.
Yours was good. My Welsh accent, though, is really going to blow some hair back later.
Well, you've never heard a Welsh person before, so it's as good as anybody taking a guess.
I've heard them on Bake Off. So social media, you can reach us there, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. There we go. Jesus. We also ask, and it's super helpful to us, if you would kindly leave a review on iTunes or whatever podcast app you use. Write 5 stars. Give us notes on our accent. Whatever.
Write a memorable phrase that you heard in this episode. Night goals. Talking about them night goals.
Perfect. Also, of course, you could just say, you're never doing the Holocaust.
Yeah. Make it known to people who are just checking out our show. They promise they're not going to do.
Does anyone have anything to plug? I didn't ask this beforehand. I can start if people need time to think.
I'm not doing shit.
No, yeah, I'm deep in my class. I have a temporary website deployed, but by the time this comes out, we won't be maintaining the database anymore. So you can see the CSS, I guess.
I would actually really like to plug the salted caramel gelato from Trader Joe's, which I've been I've been stress eating just Trader Joe's caramel gelato all week to get ready for our move.
Sure.
Putting on my winter weight, to keep all the warmth in. So yeah, Trader Joe's salted caramel gelato. That's my plug.
Okay. You know what? They have these little cookies that are like peanut butter roundels, they're called, or something. They're great.
Ooh.
Okay. I fuck with that. And of course, the Lighthouse from A24. And I actually don't have anything until like December. So
let's move on to the judgment portion, because I'm nearing the end of my map in terms of battery life on this computer.
Word.
So we're going to the judgy section, as Brian called it, where we talk about how Cheryl from The Office gossips too much, I think.
The irony is we're gossiping about Cheryl right now.
The fact of the matter is it's spooky season here at the Revisionists and in all of America and some other parts of the world. So how could I resist a true vampire classic? It's gotta be the alternate this time.
Yeah!
It's vampire season. The vampires rule the night. They hold us in their cruel clutches, and they dictate the history of this world. So, so it is going to be the alternate history from me.
Well, listeners, voting is now open on Patreon, and if you're quick, you can get in the last minute voting on Instagram if you check our story in a week or two. But I think that'll do it for this episode. Jen, thank you so much for being here and coming up with a great story on short notice.
You're welcome.
Vampires. Zach, thank you as always.
Of course.
For everyone here at the Revisionist, blah. I've been Brains Flynn.
And I've been, I guess, boo, I've been Zach Powers, but like electricity that brings Frankenstein back to life, that kind of power. So that's my Halloween name. I'm Zach, the electricity that brings Frankenstein back to life powers. So,
And of course, Jen Killick. I think that's...
yeah.
Woo, Jen Killer.
Yeah.
Wait, am I Jen the Killer, or am I a killer of women named Jen?
I think Jen the Killer.
Okay.
I think. Anyway, have a spooky time with the bats.
Yeah, look
And the
forward
goblins.
to, I think we're doing a 100th episode after our Spooktober, so keep an eye
Yes.
out. Have a good, spooky, scary, safe Halloween time.
Oh, werewolves, baby.
Yeah. New slogan.
October 19th, 439. The Vandals take Carthage, a bloody follow-up to the Great Vandal Caper, and also helping to introduce Vandal babies. I fucked that up, but... October 19th, 1512. Martin Luther gets his doctorate of theology, and he's now known as the second most anti-Semitic German.